Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm back on the water in the shadow of Domino Sugar, and I am underneath the Pride of Baltimore 2. The Pride sailed into this dry dock, the water was pumped out, and when it plopped down on the stilts, you could get at the bottom, and you can see the workers behind me getting at the bottom, repairing and painting. We are going to talk about the Pride today. I'm thrilled that Jeff Buchheit, the director of the Pride organization and a friend of mine, is going to join me. But before I turn it over to Jeff, let me just say a word or two about the Pride. The Pride 2 launched in 1988. Before that, the Pride 1 launched in 1977, and before that, the Chasseur launched from Fells Point in 1812, just in time to fight the British in the War of 1812. The Chasseur was a clipper ship. I think it's a topsail schooner, maybe, something like that. And it was the scourge of the British. Captain Thomas Boyle, a swashbuckler and daredevil, was its captain. During the course of the war, he captured, I think, 17 British ships. He was a privateer. The U.S. government had given him license to carry all sorts of cannon and firearms on his boat and to take whatever he could get from the British. But he's probably best known for sailing past the blockade of the Chesapeake, over across the Atlantic to the English Channel, and telling King George that he declared that there was now a blockade of all of Great Britain. He and his crew and the boat behind me, or something close to the boat behind me, not too big, kind of gutsy. When Thomas Boyle sailed back and the war's over, one of the national newspapers called him and his boat and his crew the Pride of Baltimore. So that's how we get our name. So how do we get the boat? Well, in the 1970s, Baltimore was desperate to rebuild after World War II and our industrial base collapsed. In 1971, I think we had cleared out the warehouses from the harbor, getting ready for the inner harbor. 1975, I think, is when we put in the pier for the USS Constellation. And in 1977, we launched the Pride 1, an ambassadorship that was not an exact copy of the Chasseur, but was faithful to the famed clipper ships of the War of 1812. It sailed around the world for about 150,000 miles, but in 1986, a sudden squall in the Atlantic capsized it. They didn't even have time to send out a distress signal. 8 crewmen found a lifeboat, and after 4 days were rescued at sea, but the captain and 3 crew were not. There's a memorial to the Pride 1 at Rash Field. The Pride organization was reluctant to rebuild, but there was an outpouring of support from Baltimore and Maryland to do so. And in 1988, the Pride 2 was launched as a memorial to the Pride 1 and the crew members lost, and as a way to carry on its goodwill mission. It's now sailed, this boat has now sailed 275,000 miles to something like 40 different countries. Over 100,000 people have been welcomed on board. It really is a goodwill ambassador for Baltimore and for Maryland. All right, before I turn it over to Jeff, let me just say one quick personal story. About 20 years ago, I was lucky enough to be in Ireland, and of course went to Baltimore, Ireland, was eating dinner at a little pub with my wife. I think there is only one little pub in Baltimore, Ireland, and the table next door, over from me, I heard in a very Baltimore, Maryland accent, something like, no, 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 when you're in Fells Point on Thames Street, you have to go to the Cat's Eye Pub. And I whipped my neck around, and there was the crew of the Pride mixing it up with local folks from Baltimore, Ireland. The next morning, my wife and I got a thrill to be able to see the Pride set sail out of Baltimore to ports around the world. All right, I am now going to turn it over to you. Jeff, we are all yours.
Hi everybody, my name is Jeff Buchheit, and I have the privilege of being the Executive Director for Pride of Baltimore, Inc., the nonprofit that supports the tall ship Pride of Baltimore 2. Thank you for inviting me and doing this today here at the ship while it's in dry dock. What's really cool about this year is 2023 is our 35th anniversary. So for over 3.5 decades, we have sailed as an ambassador for the state of Maryland and city of Baltimore, going to ports far and wide, and we are super excited about this year, celebrating. We'll be going down to the Gulf of Mexico, and what we're really excited about is for all these decades we've been an ambassador for Maryland, but we're doing this new program with the National Park Service where we're sailing into communities throughout the Chesapeake Bay along the Star-Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, and we're inviting residents from underserved communities to come on board the ship and do some free sailing. And what's so neat about that is if you live in Maryland, it is quite likely that you may not have ever gone out on the water, even though you live in this maritime community. So thanks to this partnership with the National Park Service, that's one of the key things that we're doing, and we're looking forward to that partnership continuing. This will be our third year of that. And we also have the Pride of Baltimore Junior Sailor Scholarship Program, where we're getting young youth of color out on the water and teaching them sailing, and hopefully eventually they serve as crew on Pride of Baltimore too. So there's so many other things I could share, but this is our 35th birthday year and we're excited about that, and thank you for having us today.